Hello, my name is Kristof Beyls. One of my roles is being on the board of the LLVM Foundation. As part of that role, in the past 9 months or so, I have focused mostly on progressing the LLVM relicensing effort. Today, I'm presenting an update on the status of the relicensing effort. I'm going to start off with giving a high-level overview of how the relicensing effort has developed over the years. The rest of the presentation is then going to provide a bit more detail about each relicensing phase. The relicensing effort started some time ago. In the years leading up to 2015, it became clear that there were some issues with the license LLVM had at the time. I'll provide more detail on that later in the presentation. It became clear that a different license was the answer to those issues. Between roughly 2015 and 2017, the focus was on deciding what different license would be best suited. Once it was decided what the new license was going to be, we started working on getting all code to be covered by this new license. That includes getting agreement from all copyright holders of existing code to share their past contributions under the new license. As you can see on the timeline, getting those agreements is in the current focus of the relicensing effort. As you may imagine, reaching out to all past contributors is a major piece of work. You may be pleased to hear that you can help with that. I'll explain how later in this presentation. It may be that we won't be able to get an agreement from every single past contributor. In that case, we have a number of options to get to the point where we can claim that all code in the project is covered by the LLVM license. I call this phase of relicensing the endgame. The old license consists of three components: the University of Illinois license that covered all the code, the MIT license that additionally covered the code in runtime libraries, and a few sentences on granting patent rights in the developer policy. So what were the issues that people ran into with the old license? First, some were blocked from contributing because of the text in the patent section in the developer policy. The wording could be interpreted as requiring unnecessarily broad access to patent rights by contributing to LLVM. So broad that made it impossible for some companies to contribute. Secondly, we could not easily move code to runtime libraries from other parts of LLVM that were only covered by the University of Illinois license. The runtime libraries were dual licensed under both the University of Illinois and the MIT license. Therefore, code from the other parts could not be moved to the runtime libraries, as it was missing coverage by the MIT license. The reason runtime libraries were dual licensed was to enable linking to runtime libraries without requiring attribution to LLVM. Thirdly, the wording on patent rights in the developer policy was fuzzy and imprecise, leading to uncertainty over whether it did provide the intended protection. To address these issues, after exploring a range of options, it was decided that the best solution was to have all LLVM code licensed under the Apache 2 license with an LLVM exception. Apache 2 contains well-understood patent-granting text, which addresses the first and third issue. The LLVM exception is there for two reasons. First, it removes a potential incompatibility with using LLVM code in combination with GPLv2 code. And second, removing the requirement for developers using LLVM tools to tell the users of the binaries they produce that those binaries may contain some code originating from LLVM. Such a situation can easily arise when parts of the runtime libraries are linked in as part of the normal compilation flow. Therefore, the LLVM exception enables the runtime libraries to be covered by the exact same single license as the rest of the codebase. With the decision made of what the new license should be, we started working on having all code covered. As a first step, we made sure that all new contributions were covered by the new license. This happened after the 8.0 release branch was created. The 100,000 or so commits since are covered by the new license. The remaining task is to also get the earlier contributions covered by the new license. This consists of about 300,000 commits, totaling about 32 million lines of contributed code. What needs to be done to get those earlier contributions covered? The reason we need a license in the first place is copyright. Most code contributions are covered by copyright, which means that the person or company owning the copyright has a lot of decision power over what can legally be done with that code. By covering the code with a license, it becomes clear what others are permitted to do with that code. If there isn't a license associated with copyright code, there isn't all that much useful that others can do with it. Basically, if we want existing code to be covered by a new license, we need to find who owns the copyright on it and ask them to agree with offering their copyrighted work under the new license. The copyright owner can be either an individual, for example, the person who wrote the code originally, or a company, for example, a company that employed the person who wrote the code. We started asking for their agreements by examining the version control log of the 300,000-ish commits we need to get agreements for. We found that about 2,800 different people or email addresses made a contribution. We reached out to all of them and asked them two things. First, if any corporation may copyright own their contributions. And secondly, if they agree with relicensing the contributions they copyright own personally. So far, we've heard of about 220 unique corporations potentially copyright owning some past contributions. We also started reaching out to those, but have not yet asked every single one of them just yet. So after two and a half years since we started asking, where are we with getting agreements to license? I tried to summarize it in the chart shown on this slide. This is a tree map where each rectangle represents contributions made by one person. The size of the rectangle represents how many lines of code the person contributed. When the rectangle is green, it means all their contributions are fully covered by relicensing agreements. When the rectangle is orange, it means we have not yet received such an agreement. When the rectangle is orange with green stars, it means some contributions by that person are covered and others are not. This can happen, for example, when the person has worked for multiple companies over time and only some of those companies have agreed with relicensing so far. We already have over 94% of all contributed lines of code between 2001 and 2019 covered by a licensing agreement. We only have a good 5% of lines of code to go still. As you can see, most of the missing agreements are with long-tail contributors. By long-tail contributors here, we mean the many contributors who contributed relatively fewer lines of code. We first focused on reaching out to the bigger contributors. To reach out well to the long tail of contributors, we're hoping to get help from the wider LLVM community. Please do consider helping us with reaching any of the people or corporations in the long tail. Please have a look at the up-to-date list of people and corporations we can use help with getting in touch with. You can find that list on the LLVM Foundation website following the relicensing long tail link that you see in the middle of the slide. If you do think that you could help us with reaching out to someone on the list, or you may have some other information that could help us, please do let us know by emailing the email address on the slide, licensequestions@llvm.org. We are currently in the phase of getting as many relicensing agreements as possible. We do expect that we may not be able to get absolutely 100% of all past contributions covered by an agreement. what can we do to achieve current top of mainline to be fully covered by the new license? We will have to decide on a contribution by contribution basis what the options are available to achieve that goal. We have at least the following options. First, we can check if copyright even applies to the particular contribution. Very small contributions may not be covered by copyright, and therefore there's no need for a license agreement. Second, it may well be that code contributed a long time ago is no longer in the code base. And third, if copyright does apply and the code is still in the code base, we have the option to remove the contribution. Depending on whether current contributors and users still value the effect of that contribution, it may need to be re-implemented. In summary, in this presentation, I have described the rationale for why LLVM is in the process of relicensing the code base. I have also given an overview of the timeline of the project. All contributions since 2019 are fully covered by the new license already. For the older contributions, we already have over 94% of them covered too. But we could use help with the remaining long tail. So please do check if you could help us reach out to some of the people or corporations we're still trying to get in touch with. Please follow the URL on the slide, which will bring you to the long tail relicensing page on the LLVM Foundation website. If you do have any further info or questions, you can reach us at licensequestions@llvm.org. Thank you very much for listening. I think this brings us to the Q&A section of this presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Kristof. And don't forget to use the Q&A box to submit any questions, because so far we don't have any. But then, yeah, probably the licensing question is pretty clear and so on. But still, then please do allow me to ask the question. So, Kristof, you mentioned that we might need to re-implement some features if the contributor is not here anymore for any particular reason. But do you happen to know how we might do this? Because this ought to be some, I don't know, clean room implementation, or how this is normally achieved.
So I have not personally investigated exactly in detail how we should do this. Currently, our focus is on getting as many agreements as possible so that we have a small set as possible of contributions that we still need to process in alternative ways. And I think it will depend on exactly how many contributions are then left over on how to exactly go about this. I'm assuming we'll have to gather advice on how to best approach this and then implement a plan on how to go through this.
Okay, great. But do you know about any other big projects that went through this kind of procedure during the relicensing? Because I have not heard myself that the project really rewritten some part of the functionality and then like significant part of the functionality during the relicensing.
So in the past couple of months, I have searched for examples of other big open source projects relicensing. One example I found was Mozilla Firefox, apparently about 20 years ago, going through licensing phase. But there, based on the documentation I did find online, it seemed like they concluded once they reached a particular percentage of agreements, they could assume that all code was covered by the new license. There's no further details there available. At the moment, the more explicit agreements we get in, the easier it will become to do this end game play where we'll have to investigate what the best way is to get to 100% coverage.
Yeah, I see. But if you go the Mozilla way, so what should be our percentage be in this case?
Right. So Mozilla apparently said at 95% agreements. We assume
so we're almost there.
We're maybe almost there, but there's no documentation. Well, I could not find any documentation on the reason why they believed 95% was the right target. So I would at least want to know why is 95% a good target.
Yeah, I see. Okay, and finally we have some questions. So the first question is, if you work for a company that has not signed yet, what's your advice to help get your company to sign? So, and any suggestions on type of people to contact within the companies?
I have a number of different suggestions that hopefully can all help. So first of all, if you do go to the Longtail Relicensing website, we actually have a small piece of text there as a suggestion of how you could explain to other people in the company what this relicensing project is and why it's important for the company to sign the agreement. And typically, so far, it seems that the most companies signing, it happens through people actively currently contributing to LLVM, talking to their engineering managers, directors, VPs about this, and then they happen to know the process within companies to get a signature on a contract. And that seems to be the typical way. If you do reach out to like if you're working at a company and you're seeing, oh, my company hasn't signed yet and they should sign. If you need any help with that, do please also reach out to us on the licensequestions@llvm.org email.
Great, thank you. And we have another question. The question is, this is quite a nice question. How did you go about finding people who are referenced only via patch by commits?
I spent way too many days and weeks of my life Google searching, trying to find contact info. So in total, there's between 8,000 and 9,000 commits that are patch by commits. There's probably about 3,000 to 4,000 unique names in there. Basically, I put them all in spreadsheets, and I started looking for contact information and started sending a hopefully nice email to them. And well, many of them have reacted, but for some of them, probably I guessed the contact information incorrectly. So please do have a look at the published list of names. If you do know current contact information, that would be really helpful for us. Thank you.
Yeah, and this reminds that I probably have to ping a couple of my contacts as well. So yeah, because even if we have some initial response from people, then it does not mean that ultimately they sign something. So that's another sad story here. Great. So I don't see any more questions. So then probably let me do the last final check now. So then probably thank you, Kristof, and thank you everyone who asked the questions. So
right.
hopefully soon we will have the whole codebase switch to the shiny new license and have all our contributions through the history covered by the new license.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.